Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely profound and honestly pretty gripping case study that pushes right up against the edges of human experience. We're exploring the deep mystery of the twin soul connection, the wild concept of biological entanglement, and some incredibly fascinating phenomena that occur after death. Now, we all know the bond between identical twins is legendary for its depth, but what actually happens when that bond is physically severed by loss? Well, we're going to walk through a deeply personal yet highly rigorous paper by researcher Mark Edward Shard. He documented an astonishing trajectory of anomalous experiences right after his identical twin brother passed away. It's a story that absolutely challenges everything we think we know about the finality of death.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the twin soul connection. Second, Moustakis' heuristic inquiry. Third, visionary geometric patterns. And finally, the Enochic paradigm dyad. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, the twin soul connection, focusing on bereavement and biology. The entire foundation of this study is built on a staggering biological reality. In April of 2020, the author's identical twin brother was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cirrhosis of an unknown origin, which tragically led to his unexpected passing later that year. But then, 3 years later in May of 2023, the author himself received the exact same terminal diagnosis at the exact same hospital. This breathtaking parallel really highlights a profound physiological unity between the two brothers, and it perfectly sets the stage for the deeply interconnected experiences that followed.
Now, before we get into the more unusual experiences the author recorded, we really need to normalize this topic just a bit. Take a look at this number, 40%. Studies consistently show that at least 40% of bereaved people worldwide report some form of after-death communication. Whether that's a sensed presence, a super vivid dream, or a symbolic encounter, feeling an ongoing connection with someone who has passed is incredibly common across literally all cultures. So we aren't dealing with an isolated fringe phenomenon here. We're exploring a highly intense, deeply documented version of a very common human experience. It makes you wonder, have you or someone you know ever felt that continuing bond?
That brings us straight to Section 2, Moustakis' heuristic inquiry. Because these personal experiences were so intense, the author needed a structured way to analyze them without losing their emotional truth. So he relied on the Moustakis heuristic inquiry 1990-1994. This is a qualitative method designed exactly for situations where the researcher is directly involved in the experience. It moves systematically through 6 phases. First is initial engagement, where the researcher realizes the phenomena demand attention. Then comes total immersion in the data. After that is incubation, basically stepping back to let the subconscious do its thing, followed by illumination, where patterns suddenly click into place. Next up is explication, where you systematically analyze the themes. And finally, creative synthesis, pulling it all into one coherent narrative. This process ensures the study isn't just a personal diary, it's a rigorous academic investigation. And you really have to appreciate the sheer dedication here. The author logged 5 full years of longitudinal data. Over a half-decade, almost daily, he would sit in a quiet, incense-filled room, meditating and contemporaneously documenting every anomalous experience in his journal within hours of it happening. No looking back and reinterpreting things months later, just raw, immediate observational data.
Moving on to Section 3, Visionary Geometric Patterns.
So what exactly was he experiencing during those quiet hours? Well, over those 5 years, 3 distinct imagery themes spontaneously emerged. And it's important to note, the author wasn't actively trying to conjure these up. They just arrived. The first theme was visionary geometric patterns. The second was wolf imagery, which consistently showed up as this protective guardian during moments of high anxiety. And the third was radiant light phenomena. These were not random, chaotic hallucinations. They were highly structured, recurring motifs that evolved and actually intensified over time.
Actually, the very first of these encounters happened on the exact night his twin brother passed away. The author recorded a wildly visceral scene, writing, "A flash of white light filled the room, not external, not internal, but something that broke through. It came with the word yes, felt rather than heard." This sudden, luminous presence really set the tone for the years of encounters that followed, encounters that felt incredibly responsive and directly intended for him.
As time went on, those visionary geometric patterns evolved organically. He described seeing simple forms at first, like a black square on the floor smoothly transitioning into a brilliant white circle of light. But then, these grew into massive, three-dimensional structures of rotating circles and luminous grids. Only later, through his own research, did he realize these specific patterns structurally resembled Metatron's cube from sacred geometry and Kabbalistic tradition. That's a symbol historically associated with translating divine light into material form. Alongside the complex geometry and radiant light, he also documented these brief telepathic communications, short, directive little phrases like, "Don't doubt, be bold," or "We are inseparable." And these didn't feel like his own internal monologue. They carried a very distinct relational presence. According to his notes, these phenomena were totally unsolicited, but inherently supportive, basically giving him a profound sense of ongoing companionship and quiet guidance from his brother.
So having meticulously logged 5 whole years of geometric imagery, protective wolves, radiant lights, and telepathic reassurance, we are faced with the ultimate question. How do we actually explain these phenomena? Are we just looking at the neurocognitive architecture of a grieving brain, or is something much more profound happening at the intersection of human consciousness and reality?
That leads us right into our final section, the Enochic paradigm dyad.
To make sense of all this data, the author proposes a pretty dense but absolutely fascinating theoretical framework. It starts with this concept, holistic theological anthropology. This is a crucial definition for understanding his conclusions. It's essentially the belief that a human being isn't just a ghost driving a meat machine. Instead, within holistic theological anthropology, the physical bond and spiritual consciousness are deeply unified. The physical body and the spiritual soul are inextricably woven together.
And here is how that directly applies to identical twins. Because they start as a single split zygote, they share exact DNA. The author suggests that if consciousness operates non-locally, meaning it isn't just confined to our physical brains, then the identical cellular matrices of monozygotic twins may function as a biological entangled system. It's kind of like quantum entanglement, where two particles affect each other across massive distances. He's suggesting these two humans were entangled on a cellular and therefore conscious level.
This sets up a truly fascinating comparison. While they were both on Earth, their twinship was defined by that shared biology, right down to the tragic mirroring of their terminal illness. But the author theorizes that this shared physical breakdown actually acted as a somatic thinning of the veil. When his brother died, their earthly biological connection didn't just vanish, it was reconfigured. It shifted from an earthly twinship into a celestial dynamic where one transmits light and imagery and the other receives and interprets it.
The author named this specific dynamic the Enochic paradigm dyad. He drew this from ancient apocryphal texts where the prophet Enoch is transformed into the celestial scribe Metron, the intermediary of divine light. He suggests their twin soul connection underwent a very similar transformation. One twin crossed over to become the messenger, sending down light and complex geometry, while the surviving twin remained on Earth, acting as the scribe, meticulously documenting it all.
Which leaves us with a truly profound question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If consciousness really does operate non-locally, how might our deep biological bonds shape our experiences of reality beyond death? Whether you're viewing this case study through the lens of profound psychological grief, quantum biology, or ancient mysticism, it absolutely forces us to reconsider the endurance of human connection. When the physical body fails, does the bond survive, beautifully and geometrically reconfigured? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will catch you in the next one.